welcome to Virginia School of Traditional Arts. We have a special project today. We have been requested to recondition this cannon. It came to me about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago now, but I've been pretty busy, so I'm getting ready to start on it. I started on it a little bit last night. It had some black paint on it, but it also had some rust, and the gentleman that owns this wanted us to take all the paint off and all the rust off and repaint it. And the carriage looks to be oak. It's in good shape, other than somebody have let it sit outside in the rain and it swole up, and the wheels on it don't roll. We push it, none of the wheels roll. He also requested I polish all the brass pieces, so I'm gonna pop all those pieces out. I'm going to show you how this thing works. I have already, like I was saying, I've already used some, what is this? Brake parts cleaner. Carburetor cleaner does the same thing. Brake parts cleaner. We sprayed that on there. It doesn't take the paint off, but it makes the paint kind of feel tacky. And it speeds up your wire brushing. You can do only wire brush if you want to, but the brake parts cleaner seems to soften the paint some. And so we've got some more of that to do, more wire brushing to do. As you can see down here, still have some black paint on this end, and probably a little bit on the nose. I did most of the middle last night. It's still in a few places. But I'll show you how this cannon works, or how it comes apart, I guess, at least initially. It has these little keepers, so you pull that out, and then on each side it has one of these pieces. These are all brass, cast brass pieces. And we're going to polish those. I don't know what they'll look like. I've never polished any cast brass that wasn't smooth. This is not, it still has the sand casting marks. The cannon itself was sand cast too, looks to me like. So it's still got some imperfections in it, and we may hit it with some sandpaper just a little bit to knock off some of the big chunks, but it's going to have to, like here's a pretty good imperfection in it, relatively deep one. I mean, maybe you can get your fingernail on it, so at least a 16th. And one over here as well on this side, but cannon's in good shape as far as using it and working it. So we're going to pick it up. It weighs 75 pounds. So we're going to pick that up. Then we have the carriage, and it's made up of lots of parts. I wasn't sure if these were screwed in or if they were pressed in, but these, I pulled one out last night, and it's just pressed in. I started turning it and it just spun, it wouldn't come out, so I figured at that point they were pressed in. And the same goes for this. This one's sticking up higher than this one because I stuck my crowbar under here and picked up on it a little bit just to make sure it would come out. And so those are the major parts of this thing. We've got these little keepers. There's got a little piece stuck in. I assume this is just driven in there too. We're going to see about we can find something to pull that out with too. It's little teeny pieces right here. And then there's a ring on the side, and I have a feeling that's just pressed in as well. And they're fairly deep, so that was deeper than I was expecting. But this has got to hold the cannon into this carriage, so I expect all of them are going to be this deep. And then it's a few bolts here on the side. And they have brass nuts on them. We'll polish all of that stuff up. And then we're going to take these wheels off. The wheels are wooden on a wooden axle. And when you set wood outside, it swells up and swells the grain and all that. So we're going to have to take these off, see what we can do to make this functional again. He wants these to roll, of course, which they should. But we're going to have to figure on that. Alright, I'll show you how I pull these things out. Something with a hole in it. I use just a punch, and I stick my crowbar under here, pry it up. I think we can get a hold of it pretty good. And then we just pull it out. And these are all brass. And we're gonna polish the top, which you'll see, but we're not gonna mess with the bottom. And we'll end up putting something in this hole, either glue or paint. Just something to coat that inside of that hole to make it swell up a little bit, so when we drive these back in, they're tight again. Because once you drove it in and pull it out, it's not as tight as it once was. So we're going to put all our pieces together. I'll show you how this one comes out. We take this and we put this under here. Pick up on it, hit down a little bit. There we go. Come out there. And that'll be your pieces. And we'll polish all of these pieces as well. All the other pieces pulled out, but I noticed this particular one that held our little keeper had a screwdriver slide in it. So that's the way this one comes out. It's actually threaded. Got a wood screw on it. So that's the way that comes out. We're going to take out these all threads, and I've tapped this one down, but we're going to put the nut back on here and tap on the nut, and then I'm going to use my soft hammer, my brass hammer, and knock these on out. But don't beat on this with something metal or you'll tear your threads up. Alright, last Carter key. And two of the other wheels came off pretty easy, as this one's doing. And one of them I had to beat off. Had to hit it with the hammer to knock it off. But it's definitely an inside and an outside to the wheel. This is flat, and this has got a decoration bead on it. But I like the way they did these. They got a nice thick steel tire on it that's been welded. Whoever welded it did an excellent job of welding and grinding it. But I think all I'm going to do to fix what the problem is I'm going to sand on the inside of this just a little bit. I'm going to sand on the outside of this just a little bit and get it where it moves freely. And then I'm going to coat it pretty liberally with some polyurethane. I'm going to try to get this to seal up. My idea. Alright, we've got both of our threaded rods out. We'll sand these up, probably put them on the wire wheel instead of sanding them, but we'll clean them up. And I'm going to paint these so they don't do this rusting again. So I'm going to prime them real good, and then I'm going to paint them. And we'll run a tap down on the threads to clean the threads up so that it's not hard to use. And we'll polish up the brass nuts that they have on here, these acorn nuts, and Those washers might be brass. I can't really tell. We'll put them on a magnet to see. They might just be brass colored. But we'll polish up what's brass and paint what's not. Next step is we're going to take off these little lag screws here. Take off the lag screws that hold the axles on. Good gravy, they long. I don't really see any nails or anything holding this together, so they may have it pegged. May have it glued and pegged. We'll tap it a little bit and see. I don't want to beat on it too much because I don't want to have to remake this thing. I don't think that's going anywhere. That sounded pretty hard. So I think they have glued it and pegged this thing. And since that's the case, this is as far down as we can take it. That's going to make sanding this a little bit more challenging. I was hoping to be able to pull it all the way apart, sand it really good, but we'll do what we can do. But that's going to be the next part, cleaning this up, sanding it down smooth, getting all the end grains of this swollen away up, especially these curvy ones, and we'll sand it down smooth and get it back cleaned up. We'll put the primer on it and then paint it. I got out my sander. It's got a little, this is kind of a funky sander. The belt goes all the way to the end, and I thought, oh, that'll be ideal to get up in this hole, but it's too wide. Ain't that something? So I can do a little bit down here, but I'm not going to be able to do much. And then I'm going to have to hand sand all this inside here. And we'll take care of that. Always remember your safety glasses and your hearing protection. Alright, all the fun's over with, and that's down to the grunt work. We've got to take this. Just going to run these tags on this sander just a little bit. Just to get them smooth. I'll show you all our little gizmo we made. Nothing but a dowel, and this was just run on my other belt sander till I shrunk it up so it would fit in my chuck. This is too big to fit in the chuck. And then I just cut a slot, and this is the one point in your life that cutting a straight line may not be the best. You cut it just slightly curvy, crooked look a little bit. And then I ran it back and forth in here and made this first 3 inches, a little bit wider than I just had one saw cut down here. And so when you put your paper in there, and you want to put your paper in there halfway, like, don't try to stick just the end of it in there. It's not going to work. But if you put your paper in there, check, see which way to spin it. So we want it to go this way. And my plan is, see which way to do it? Let's turn it that way. Fold it back this way. Plan is to put this in here. Just hold it a few seconds. Let it sink. Definitely like that done. We don't need a whole lot of sanding, just need it smooth. Alright. We have sanded the peg, we've tapered back this corner, and we've sanded the inside of our wheels. So now it's our test fit, see how they do. That looks like it does pretty good. Now that's with no weight on it. Of course, when you push down on it, it's a wood on wood, so it's not ever going to be smooth like a bearing. But we're still working on our Canon project today. I have stripped off some of the paint. I didn't film that, but I'll show you how I did it. Still have some back here on this back end, and have some little detail places that's not got all the paint off just yet. But we're going to show you how I do that. There's probably other ways of doing this, but this is my method. Seems to work okay. But we're going to use some brake parts cleaner. I buy this at the Wally World. They're not paying me anything, but if they want to, they're welcome to. It's relatively cheap, about $2 or $3 a can, or it used to be. I buy it by the case because I use so much of it. But I use this not only to remove the paint, but to clean my metal items, my sculptures, whatever I'm going to paint. It's metal, I'll use this on it. And it's basically the same thing that you do when you paint a car or motorcycle or what have you. You use this and you wipe it all down, and that gets all your residue off. So we're going to use it to strip today because it does pretty good at that too. Always wear safety glasses when you're doing this kind of thing, particularly with this stuff. It's nasty stuff. It's eating away some of that paint, softening it basically. Do this in a well ventilated area. My shop is not tight by any means, but you don't want to do this in a closed place. If you got a nice tight garage, I wouldn't spray that stuff too much. Let the door open. Alright. And all I have here is a brush on a grinder, and we're just going to use it. Alright, we switched brushes. We're going to go to this cup brush, and we're going to basically do it all again. And I'm going to use it to try to get up in some of these little grooves and all this kind of stuff. The other brush does pretty good. Again, the more angles you can attack your paint and your rust at, the easier it is to get it off. And so we're going to just do it with this, so we get in every little crevice we can and getting this good and clean so that when we paint it, it stays. Alright, we wire brushed all we can, but we still have up in this section here places that the wire brush can't get, so we're going to do those by hand. I'll show you what I've been working on. I ground this with a flap disc, this section, because it had two big, I'm assuming that's where the sprue holes were for the casting, or had casting defects in it anyway. And I wanted to get those out. They were right on top of the gun. They looked pretty bad. They were pretty deep. And so I just faded them in. But when I did that, I took the texture away. So what I've been doing, you know, it was smooth looking. Smooth looking. So what I've been doing the last few minutes is just tapping on this, just using the corner of my little cross peen here, and just putting a few marks back in it. And then I'm gonna hit it with the wire brush here. The marks, when you do that, it kind of feels a little rough. And where I've wire brushed it, it's not rough. It's bumpy, but it's not rough. So what I'm gonna do after I get this done, I'm gonna hit it with the wire brush and see what it looks like. It's looking bumpy, which is what I want. I want it to blend. I don't want it to be a big slick ring here, which is what I had. And I sanded it all the way around, so whatever texture I put back, I did all the way around. So it wasn't like a patch, you know. If you don't do the whole thing, sometimes it shows worse than what you try to take care of. But we're going to hit this with the wire brush and see what we got. Alright. And when you feel that and you feel this, it's pretty much the same feeling. I'm going to go ahead and wire brush all the way around it and texture all the way around it. I've done some of it, but I'm thinking that's looking pretty good. I just want it to blend. When I go to paint it, I want it to have the same texture as this. No more, no less, no slicker, nothing else, but I do want it just to blend in so you're not seeing it. Because I did grind sand really with the flap disc. A pretty good section right on both sides of this, and it looked pretty bad. I'll turn it up and I'll show you what's on the bottom over here. This is another casting mark, but it's on the bottom or almost on the very bottom, so I'm not going to worry about fixing it as much. But these two were right on top, right where you know, the main part of your gun, right where they see it. And so I was wanting to clean those up some, but when I did it, I used a flap disc. And it made it smooth looking. It made it all the way smooth. But this is kind of what it looked like, but it was worse looking than that. And I just basically blended it in. You can still see it if you look for it, but it's definitely not an obvious hole like this. All right, I've got her sanded up, textured, and ground those couple spots down some. You can still see them if you look for them, but they're blending a lot more. They're not big holes. And so now we're going to take our carburetor cleaner and put it on a rag, and we're going to wipe this thing down, getting all much of the debris and stuff off of it as we can. And see, once you do that, you want to bury that. That was a tough lesson to learn at the high school. They just wanted to rub the dirt back and forth on it all the time. Never wanted to take it off. So you get that on there and go back over the same spot and you get more off. But if you leave that on, you just smearing it around. So right there, and we're getting it. And that's what you're getting. We'll finish doing this and we'll come back and paint it. Took it for 2 minutes. We're going to start on the bottom here, and I'm just going to put a light coat on, trying to make long strokes, long even strokes. We're going to call that one coat. Alright, we've got a couple of coats of the high heat paint on here. And it's a flat. That's what I had. And I don't know that I like the flat. So we're going to give it a top coat of the high gloss black. And we'll give it a few minutes to dry so we can roll it over and paint the top. This is the bottom. Always start on the bottom. Alright, we've got our pieces here for our wooden parts for our cannon, carriage. We've sanded them with the belt sander and by hand as much as we can with some relatively rough grit paper, about 80 grit. And now we're going to switch over. This is 120 grit, and we're going to switch over and we're going to hit them again with that, and we'll probably be close to painting. This is actually what they call it, Rust-Oleum Flat Gray Primer Ultra Cover. So I'm gonna put this on here. We're gonna prime everything, all four sides, and we're gonna do all the pieces to our cannon like this, all the wooden pieces, and we're gonna faux paint this. So you'll see how that works. We'll start with the gray primer, then we'll put a base coat of brown, and then we'll come back with a darker and a lighter brown, and that way it'll look like we may put a little tinge of red in it. We'll mix us up custom colors for this, and so this will all look like individual pieces of wood. But we'll start with trying to seal this up. Our wood here was not sealed at all. Doesn't seem to be when it was on the wheels, and when it got set outside for that point, it swole the grain up, and so we're gonna work on that, not doing that. We're gonna try to put this primer on here and see if we can get that grain to seal up, and we'll figure some way to keep it sealed up. And I've got it on a little turntable so we can spray it easy. Little pieces are always problematic to spray or to paint at all, and I definitely don't want to try to paint all this with a brush 3 or 4 times. We can paint it once with a brush. So we're going to just put us a good coat on this. In where the wheels will be. Make sure we're getting that good. And a spray can just makes this fast. That's the main reason I use it. It's not really any better paint. It's faster for certain. Alright, we got our 2 coats of primer on this. Looks pretty good. We'll do our couple of coats of brown, just a base brown. This is satin finish. Alright, we've got our pieces. We've had our brass pieces, and we run them on our vibrating sander, our little Bug sander, but it doesn't do the corners, so we've got to get the corners with our hand sander. We ran it on our belt sander. And then we wrapped our sandpaper around a stick here. Run the corners with it as best we can. And now we've got it pretty good, you can see. I did not sand in here. I may try to get that some, but that's still got the sand casting. That's what it looked like originally. I did run a wire brush on it to see if it would polish a little bit, but it's not as smooth as this. We sanded this with the sanders, both belt sander and then a vibrating sander, and then a little hand sanding on the edges of the thing. And we got to do that for all the pieces, and then the next step is once we get to this stage, we will buff it, and it'll shine like a mirror. And we'll get it looking good. I'm gonna show you. This is the before and this is the after, and we're buffing this on a buffing wheel. And you can see that we've got it sanded fairly smooth. The smoother you get it, the better the buff. This is a functional piece, so we're not taking it to like a showroom style, but we're doing pretty good. We're making her shine. She will certainly pick up the sunlight when we get it outside. But we have all these other pieces. This is the only piece I've done this far is this one. But we have all these other pieces to do. And so we got, 20 pieces I guess to do. But we'll take our time and we'll run the buffing wheel on this thing and put a shine on all these pieces. I didn't do the bottom. I don't think there's no need to do the bottom because nobody's going to see it. But I will do all the sides on the smaller pieces because you'll see those all the way around. And to do these nuts, I'm gonna put them back on the threads and hold it with that. I think that'll be the best. And these are steel, so we're gonna paint these and try to put them back through the holes without scratching the paint off. I don't know if that's gonna work or not. The holes were pretty snug taking those out. Might run the drill bit back through there, see about making the hole slightly bigger so it don't screw up our paint job. We'll take care of that as it comes. Alright, we're going to clean our wheels up. This is the last part we have to clean up before we start our faux painting. And we're going to start with the metal parts. I've got an old belt on here, and I've got a piece of pipe that's almost the right size for the hole, just about. And we're just going to turn the sander on. I'll show you how to do it. But that was pieces of a wheel. How about that? In the process of me spinning these on the piece of pipe and cleaning the outside of we'll call it the tire, the steel up, I'm sure that these inside holes aren't quite identically round, symmetrically round, And so it bounces a little bit, not much, but a little bit, apparently enough that it's made the glue turn loose of their stacked up wheel. And it's interesting the way they got it fixed. It's pretty interesting. Down here there's the weld seam, looks to be like. Yeah. And I'm sure these were put on with this being hot because this looks burnt. This right here looks burnt, so that's interesting. And so when we put this back together, we'll line it back up on that little seam again, so it'll go back in right. But I'm just going to put some glue on this and put it back together, put a clamp on it, make sure it stays together. We got our glue. We are using Tight Bond 3, because that's what I got, but it'll be fine. And we're going to put us a little mark of glue around in here. Don't need a whole bunch. This is not really holding anything but just this piece of wood into this wheel. It's going to have something on both sides, so it doesn't really need to be but so good. Right around with my finger, I'm going to put some on this side with my finger. Try to keep it out of the hole that we cleaned up. And we're going to line up that little mark right there. It just fell back in. I'm going to go tap it on the anvil just for a second with a soft face.